Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Literary Frontier. I'm your host, Clarence, along with my co-host, Jonathan Shores. How you doing, sir?
I'm good, man. I'm good. I'm glad to be on another episode of Literary Frontier.
On this episode of whatever you want to call this, probably Literary Frontier, if I can ever bring myself to say it straight with a straight face, is once again we're talking about the Autobiography of Benjamin Sisko, told by Sisko, written by Jake, edited by Derek Attico. Derek Attico really wrote it. Okay, we got that out the way. Yeah, so we are doing chapters 3 and 4 today. If you want to catch the rewind of the introduction, chapters 1 and 2, you can check that out on, by this time, it should already be on our YouTube. And if you're subscribed to our Patreon, it's going to be there as well. So yeah, be sure to check that out. But let's get right into it. I'm going to say right off, the last 2 chapters, I had a recommended viewing of a DS9 episode, but with these 2 chapters, I didn't feel like there was enough there that referenced the show itself for me to kind of give recommended viewing. So these 2 won't have it, but we're going to start with chapter 3, Absence. Well, first, let me back up a little bit. John, how you doing, sir? Welcome to the program.
Obviously not here. I'm good, man. I am good. Just, day at a time, enjoying life best we can. Trying to reach toward the goals that we're going to talk about and that Sisko lays out in his book.
Oh, cool. Well, I can't wait to get into it because to me, it's some really heartbreaking and mischievous stuff going on in these next 2 chapters.
It's weird that was your first thought. Like, I see, and I know you see it as well, but your first thought was what stood out, I guess, and we'll get into it, was mischievous and heartbreak, which definitely it's there. But my thought was like goals of like how you should bring a child up, how you should raise a child. To me, this is a story of how to raise a man.
Yes, I definitely get that. I definitely get the life lessons part of it as well. And I also get maybe just like the love for your people. I think that's a lot of things people nowadays may not get to experience as much, being that close to your grandparents, which we see in this chapter called Absence, which we'll get to the reason why it's called Absence by the end of this chapter. But yeah, I think it was a great view on just showing this slice of life of this little kid and having these grandparents, which he dearly, dearly, dearly loved. What did you think about the whole bedtime story part of this, where his mother left him in a room, he's climbing into bed with his mom, he gets rejected because he has a little sister now, and then it's off to his grandparents. A good framing device anyway for kind of setting us up to how much he loves his grandparents. So what did you think about that opening part there?
I liked it. I wish they would have referenced. So, in the previous chapters we discussed, she would read them a story and the next morning they would discuss those stories. So I kind of hope that would kind of be touched on here. Of course, it wasn't. It's not a big letdown, but by no means a critique. I thought we were going to get into that some. I can't really say I thought much about it, and the reason being is, I was the only child, so I didn't have that, and I was raised by a single parent. And then my upbringing was, you don't get a story when you go to bed. It's time to go to bed, turn the lights off, get in bed, and don't wake up, or don't come out. So that's just what I've done. So I didn't, and this is not a sad, feel bad for me story. Like I never got bedtime stories. I never had the option of going to sleep with the parents. I've never had a sister or brother that's taken that place. But from an outsider view, I do get the emotions in it, right? And I can kind of understand how he felt in that situation. And it's what you would expect in that kind of dynamic, I would think. Which I was shocked that based on what we've read so far and based on what we know from the show, I would have expected that first time, mom, like, come on, we'll make room for you. I didn't expect them to turn him around. I don't know. What about you? Did you expect that to go differently? Or?
Yeah, I kind of expected them to say, oh, you move over, daughter, JJ, and let's just hop in this bed together, was what I thought they would do. I also think they kind of, maybe as far as the storytelling element, saved it a little bit later to when we get the news that his grandma passes. And then that's the moment they let them all into bed. So it was kind of like a stage setting piece right there. But yeah, it was a little harsh to say, oh, you're older now, boy.
it goes back to like my initial statement. Like, I mean, that there kind of taught him a life lesson. I know certain things make you comfortable, and when you have a bad situation, you always reach for that comfort. But sometime you're going to have to figure out how to deal with a situation, even though you're not comfortable, you know? Like, I think that was a life lesson they were teaching him early on and right at the right age. So I get it.
Yeah, I think I like that it made him pivot in the situation too. He found another way to be with other loved ones that live with him. So I thought that was pretty cool. And I guess I don't know if it so much gets into it deeply, but it starts to maybe give us a frame of what the 6-year-old Sisko, how he was living. And we'll get into it later, but a very sheltered existence.
Yes.
It seems. It felt very Amish to me. But
you know what, though? I was going to say this at the top. I know you were saying, usually we would give you suggested watching, and, here we can't really. And it's because, like, as I was moving through these 2 chapters, I forgot it was Star Trek, right? Like, it was a standalone story to me. Like, I had not one point thought about, wondered why, like certain things we go through, they went through. If I'd have been thinking, technology that we see in Star Trek would have helped situations.
Yeah.
And never once did I even think about that. I know we'll get to the part when his grandfather passed. And, if we would have been watching Star Trek, I'd have been like, teleport, communicate. Yeah. But in that moment, we never did. I never thought it. Not once did I think. I just thought, man, that sucks. That's a bad situation.
Yeah.
I never thought about the technology. So, and we'll again see going through it, he'll say he was so sure. He didn't know it existed. He never missed anything.
Yeah.
He lived life perfectly. He had no idea that stuff was there, nor did he ever want it or have a desire for it.
Yeah, that's often the case. And I wonder, like, in today's time, if we didn't have mainly the TV, but definitely now the internet, like, what type of people we would be. Because the world has gotten so much smaller. And I like the moment where he said his world got smaller when he kind of got the realization that there's such a bigger world around him,
Right.
And then they did the setting up of this by telling us that, or at least for the frame of this story, saying that New Orleans was a type of place where they didn't really embrace technology. They tried to maintain the older ways. So it all makes sense in that aspect. But man, we'll get into it. I don't want to rush it too far, but man.
Yeah. It's just, I appreciated the writer, Sisko, Jake, whoever the case may be. I appreciate the way that they kind of put you in a frame of mind where that was not a concern. You don't think about the technology. You don't worry about the technology. You don't think about starships and stations, and it's a story, man, of a young child growing up in what he perceived as a hard time, which we know as an adult, it was just life. And what I also got a lot from this was I kept referencing back to, I guess I can't say I did think about Star Trek at times. Different lessons we're going to talk about. You kind of reflect back and like, oh, that's why Sisko made that decision in that particular episode. That's why he took that position. That's why he had that attitude. Because you can kind of frame it in like, Grandpa told him this story, and then I'm thinking, oh, it was this time in the holodeck when he made that decision. That's where it came from.
Yeah.
So,
there's also this part of this chapter too, where we see where the genesis of Sisko or Benjamin's love of jazz came from, where he heard this crazy music coming from downstairs that he'd never heard before. And he was just enamored by the sounds that was coming from his grandma, who was down there playing the piano, and she pulled him along and started to teach him a little bit by the end. So I thought that was just a great way of giving us like the genesis of Sisko sitting in Sisko's just playing on the piano. I love that.
Hey, when the jazz is in you, you got to get it out. That's what she said.
Yeah, that's what she said. That's exactly what she said.
Yeah, that was a good scene. I enjoyed that. Because I kind of wonder, we see an episode, I forget which episode it is, where Sisko's at the piano playing during the dinner service. And I thought to myself, never really talked about him being musical or playing any instruments, and here he is sitting at a piano. So it's good to have that kind of description of how that musical talent came to be.
Yeah, and we know that Avery Brooks is a huge music person himself. And was Bada Bang before or after that episode where he played the piano?
That was after.
After, yeah. He at least sings on that one, so.
That was so good. Man, I'm not going to butcher
it. I wonder that people cringe when he first started singing because, okay, I'm going to give you my philosophy with singing in dramas.
Okay.
If it's a drama where no singing occurs on a regular basis and they just break out into random song, usually I'm like, oh my God. As witnessed by the Doctor Who holiday special with Ncuti Gatwa this past Christmas, where he and his companion just bust out in the song. Now, to his defense, the aliens they were with there were singing as well, but he just bust out in the song like, what's going on here? What is this?
So, but you were okay with Strange New Worlds musical episode?
There's a reason. I love that episode, by the way.
But yeah, I personally, when I first saw that episode, I kind of cringed. I was like, man, what is Sisko going to sound like? This is going to be interesting. But man, was he good. I really enjoyed that. And it was a shock to the viewers. It was a shock to his crew. Shock to everybody.
Yeah. And then we go on to this chapter. They kind of lay the groundwork for, again, stressing this point of the lack of technology. Benjamin is surprised when he sees a Betazoid coming there as a doctor to work on his grandma and have a hypo spray as well. So he's totally in the dark. He doesn't know anything. It kind of makes me feel sorry for his sheltered existence, but not in a way, because it's such a simple life, and he obviously was happy, so you don't know what you don't know kind of thing. Right. As long as he's being treated right,
correct me if I'm wrong, but there's no real differentiating in a Betazid person and a human other than the empathic abilities. That I've seen.
Not physically that I know of.
So how would he recognize it was a different species?
They didn't put this in a book, so maybe it could have been that it was a neurological disease that his grandma was suffering from. Maybe the Betazoid was using some type of telepathic power to. They didn't put that in the book.
How did he? Sisko kind of talks about it as if he sees this person.
He does,
and recognizes it's a different species.
He does,
and he didn't know what to call it. So what was that? The only thing I was thinking maybe what's the guy that comes in to Roxana Troy all the time? That tall.
You talking about her assistant, her handyman? Her
assistant? Whatever he's calling her valet.
Yeah, I don't think he's Betazoid though. Betazoid though. I don't know what he is.
I don't know, because he did have a brief mention of being taller. I think he said 6'5" or something.
Oh, he's huge. Oh, you're saying this character in the book was
right. Anyway, small potatoes. I was wondering, how did he recognize it was a different species?
That's a good point. I did not even think about that at all. And then they also mentioned of them going back to their old ways a little bit by having this witch doctor.
Voodoo girl.
It's New Orleans. They had to do it. They could not do it. Oh man.
It worked for a couple of years. So
worked. Okay. Yeah, man. I was recently in New Orleans. I might have told you this already, and I never knew. Maybe you know this, so tell me if you did. Did you know that voodoo dolls were not really a religious practice or anything at all? They kind of use that in Hollywood. It's really just record keeping. So when somebody came, these doctors or witch doctors or whatever, somebody came and they were sick, they would use a doll to pinpoint where they hurt. So that's the reason the pin was in there, and they set it on the shelf. So the next time they come, they know what was wrong with them the last time.
Wow.
So
I had no idea.
It was co-opted by Hollywood as something creepy and scary, but really it was just record keeping.
Wow. And why has nobody ever said something?
Dude, we went on a ghost tour. That's the only reason. We went on a ghost tour in New Orleans. That's the only reason.
Oh gosh. How did you go by Sisko's?
Well, we're a couple of 100 years too early.
Oh man, that's awesome. Yeah, I didn't know that. That's good information.
Yeah, and it's even more funny that they don't know about this basic, 24th century technology, but they know about shuttles, they know about space and all the planets and stuff, but they don't know about, the human. Could they even mention in the book, they don't know about the Earth, the human technology there on Earth.
All right. Well, I mean, I think it would be something similar to, like, we know of the SpaceX and Artemis missions. We know about those rockets and all that that will be taking people to Mars or the moon or whatever the case. But we probably are not aware of some of the smaller technology advancements they've made to do that trip. They may have a hypospray we don't know about. So, I mean, it's very feasible for him not to know. But gosh, I mean, if a hypospray and medical technology is that easily accessed, why wouldn't you have it?
Yeah, well, let's take that to pivot and fast forward to, of course, the grandmother dies. And then we get this cliffhanger with them going on this fishing trip. And the grandpa, they really don't say at the time, but we found out he died on that excursion as well. So we have kind of a Benjamin that's resenting his parents a little bit. And I guess it can go into the rebellion part of this, but he's resenting his parents because, hey, there may have been technology that could have saved his granddad, but he's depending on this communication signal that doesn't pick up. And I never went to Lake Pontchartrain again.
I mean, I'm laughing, but it was a sad situation, man. And what sucks is like, what was it, like 4 weeks, 5 weeks after Grandma passed? It was Grandpa. And then what really like hurt me emotionally was how it happened. Like put yourself in his position. Like Grandpa went to check the battery. Grandpa fell. Obviously, from the description, it was a stroke or a heart attack. He grabbed his left arm, so I'm assuming a stroke. Grandpa, being wise, knew that was the time. And he told him to go sit in the car and wait for help to come, which we found out it was 5 hours later that somebody found him. So how do you sit in a car for 5 hours and know what's happened?
That's a lot to put on a 6-year-old, man.
That is a lot. So to go into where the rebellion come from, like, I don't blame him. I get it.
Yeah, especially when there may have been something, even this simple communicator that is in the hotel part of their business that he's not allowed to go into. Just these simple things that are part of the modern technology, which they just don't use. Or, I can see the reasons. I really can see the reasons. And I probably said this before, but I can see the reasons why you would hold back some things. But at the same time, it's the world he's living in,
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's kind of like, you have a newborn, so you have to make that decision at some point. How old is old enough to have a cell phone? And that's always the debate. Like, I should give them a cell phone and they could be able to communicate if they need to in case of emergencies. But like, do I need to? Like, it's so much else comes with that's negative.
Yeah.
Do I not? Like, man, that's a hard decision, especially when you're dealing with 24th century technology. What do you give your child or not give your child? Like, I don't want my child to have a teleporter. I just don't. And we'll see an example of why not here.
Yeah. It's got to be a fun time, but also a time where, raising a kid has to be very hard. It reminded me of there's a Tilly focused discovery book. I can't remember the name of it. Excuse me for that. But in that book, she would live in New York and go to college in Paris or high school in Paris, I think, every day. So yeah, just think of how smaller it makes the world instantly. Right. And just say if we were just looking here, we saw somebody do that, we'd be like, "Oh, this is like the next building over that my parents own. I'm going over there."
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I don't know if I would have,
Hey, he had a death wish. Can we rename this chapter instead of chapter 4 being rebellion? I want to rename it Death Wish.
Death Wish. Listen, you find that technology. What is your first 3 thoughts of things you can do with it? And none of them would be that. Like, let me jump off of something high and teleport out of it before I hit the ground.
Oh, if you're a 6-year-old.
No.
Well,
You're gonna
8-year-old.
want
8-year-old.
like I would have teleported to. Well, I guess he was kind of limited on his range. He could only set it to back where he was.
Yeah, within their perimeter, it would only let them do that. But you know, and then they had a good excuse. They said if they got on a transporter pad, it would get logged, and you know he didn't want to do it that way. But his friend Reese, boy, his teenage friend Reese, and babysitter, took him down a dark and dangerous path
unknowingly.
Yeah. So did we even explain what he was doing? He was okay. The first time. Go ahead.
No. I was just going to explain. So the experience, Reese's experience was let's teleport to your bedroom where you belong. Yeah. So in Reese's defense, like in that situation, that was the best option. Like,
yes,
I'm arguing with an 8-year-old about using a teleporter. I don't want to get in trouble. What's the best thing I can do? If I teleport him back to his room, he got to use teleporter. I put him back where he belongs, so I don't get in trouble. Great. Yeah. Now, our rebellious Sisko decides to jump off of the loading dock and teleport himself back to the desk before he hits the ground.
Okay. I would think I know there's a thing about if you drop a penny off the Empire State Building, it won't kill anybody. But I would think, just me thinking in my head, like, that's not a good idea. That's not a good idea because you're going to have all the same pressure from jumping off whatever height you jump from, your maximum terminal velocity or whatever. It's going to be.
He's 8, right? Like he had no terminal velocity. He didn't think of it. And to be honest with you, when he first did it, I didn't think like that. I didn't think we've seen many episodes where people are falling and they teleport back and they hit the pad.
They do. Yeah.
You know, so like, I just never thought about that myself. So I know 8-year-old Ben Sisko didn't think of it. But again, just to like, even at 3 foot, you have to cross your mind at 8 years old. What if it doesn't work?
Yes.
Right. And then, but I guess new technology assumes it always works. I don't know.
Yeah, you would think there would be some safety protocol built in there. So they're coming in at this velocity, slow them down before they hit the ground. That's what I would think.
Well, but maybe if he'd have used the pad, it probably would have been. You know? But because he was using the site to site or whatever, I guess they used to teleport. They were on a loading dock, so I'm assuming they teleporting boxes and goods and items. So
plus, he know what the hell he was doing. He saw somebody do this for 5 minutes, which a nod to his intelligence there for remembering or figuring it out. Because that was my first inclination when he went back to the transport. I was like, is he going to be able to do this? But he waves the comm badge. Oh, this thing you can talk on it too. So we see the Sisko's restaurant comm badge, which I want to produce and sell. I'll talk to you offline. But the Sisko's restaurant comm badge is what he's using to kind of do all of this. So, yeah, he makes the excuse the first time because he gets hurt. If this wasn't enough, well, let's stop right here. He gets hurt. He lies to his parents.
It's important to point out, if you're not reading the book, he gets hurt because after the loading dock was successful, he jumped off the top of the second floor stairs.
Yes.
So, he didn't just take a chance one time. He doubled it. He exponentially increased.
Yes. Just getting a little bit more dangerous. And he hurts his arm. Turns out he has a fracture. Then we have another foray into him learning more about medical technology. He doesn't know about I guess he saw hypospray with his grandma, but he didn't know about the extent of all the medical technology. They basically fixed his bone in the time.
And he didn't know. He just described his grandma as a long cylinder he's pushed to the neck. So he didn't really know what it was. He just know grandma got better. I love how he described it when they used it for him, though. He says like a snake injecting his venom.
Ooh, that's good. And he mentions medical devices, tricorder, and hypospray. It's stuff that he probably should have known about, but no, he didn't know what it was.
Well, he probably needed a couple of those if he was going to keep this adventure up.
Yeah, well, as if breaking your arm wasn't enough, I guess we could talk about the climax of the chapter. If this was a TV show, this would be the cliffhanger before the next episode. Ben, I love you, man. I love you. But my God.
You big dummy. This one scene made me question every decision he made.
Oh, God. Oh, God. So he wants to repeat his experiment, but get a little bit more risque. And how will we do that? Let's do a long jump off 18 off an 18-wheeler. So his plan again is let's jump off of something, but this time he's going to hedge a little bit. He's going to beam a mattress in first to his landing position. So, okay. He's thought of everything.
Yeah. Except for the very first problem I mentioned. What if the teleporter doesn't work?
So he gets on top of this 18-wheeler or semi-truck. I forgot what they call it in the book. And he takes a running, leaping start. And the transporter doesn't work. And he wakes up, or he hits the ground in agonizing pain, hears somebody screaming, realizes it's him. and that's what the chapter is.
Can you imagine the kind of agony you have to be in when you don't realize you're the one screaming?
Oh, my God. Oh, my God.
God.
Best cliffhanger award goes to this chapter so far.
Well, I gotta be honest here. I've read into the next chapter.
I
didn't read it. I read like the first paragraph because I could not just stop there. Like I needed to know: was he dead? Was he alive? Was it a dream? Was it not? Did teleporter? Anyway. I won't spoil it.
Was the resolution in chapter 5 good enough for you? We won't get into the details, but
yeah, we won't get into it. We'll I only read one paragraph, so it didn't really flesh it all the way out. So I'm still got to go through that part.
So, guys, join us for chapter 5, where Ben will be in a psych ward. No. I don't know what's going on.
There's a reference for that episode when he was in the psych ward, paging Doctor. What was his name?
I don't even remember that.
You remember he was looking for the orb in the desert, and he in his mind he was in the psych ward and he was writing the Deep Space Nine story on the wall.
Yes.
And they were kept trying to make him stop, and he's like, "No, I have to finish. I have to finish. I must finish my story."
Oh my God.
And then they kept paging some doctor. He's like, I wish he would get there.
I just want to review that episode just because you're bringing all these memories back.
I forget it. As a matter of fact, it may be the episode you referenced last one.
Yeah, after the one when he went home.
Yeah.
I think it may be that one. Yeah,
that's the next episode.
Because that's when he's looking for the orb.
Yeah.
Oh, it's good stuff, man. Yeah, I think that's the extent of the notes I have. I should have said this up top, but I want to encourage anybody who's reading this book along with us and watching it along with us to please, hit us up with feedback. You can send that in to feedback@discussingdrek.com. Any other takeaways from these two chapters, John? Chapters 3 and 4 before we get out of here, man, because we kind of went through it pretty fast, but I think we covered it sufficiently. It's all life building stuff.
And I just suggest, you really need to read it because, we've been talking for 30 minutes or so?
Yeah.
And I can tell you we probably covered 20-30% of what was in these two chapters. That's important to know. I can't get in every detail, but man, if you're a father looking for advice, going through a tough time with our son, this is a great couple of chapters to read. If you're a child dealing with the loss of grandparents or parents, this is a good chapter to read. If you're dealing with, a new sister or brother, this is a good chapter to read. I know there's a part in here where he hits his little sister for the first time. We didn't talk about that. There was a life lesson in that. So, man, read it for the lessons, for sure. That's what I take for these two chapters. And they really stand alone on their own.
They do.
You don't need to read the first few chapters. You don't even have to read the rest of this book unless you want. You'll be stuck on this cliffhanger, but two good chapters, man. Overall, I enjoyed it.
The great illustration of a family dealing with grief. I love that his new mom, but he just says mom in the book. His mom stepped in when the family was about to give up and the business is out of commission. She just steps in and just takes charge. Excuse me. So yeah, I just love that. I love that. I thought that was pretty awesome in this book. And I want to add real quick before we get out of here. And I'm going to say this real quick. Judith, the twins, David and Elias. Now, I know we don't hear about them in the show. At least I don't think we hear about them in the show. But do you think it's a little bit too much to know that Sisko has this big family, two twin brothers and a sister, and we never hear anything about them? I don't know why we would hear about them. Maybe when we went back home, we should hear about them, but it feels kind of, and I know why they're doing it for this book, but it does feel kind of shoved in there a little bit.
That was my thought as well. I was disappointed that we didn't hear more about this, and maybe this will be addressed in later chapters. So yes, I was disappointed, but I mean, overall, we never really got, it was the Dominion War, and I think the only time they would have had to address it would have been the going home episode. And there was so much to cover in that it just really didn't come up. But yeah, I get it. It just feels like they kind of put it here for the book. And the fact you never hear Jake mention it at all.
That's true.
Jake has uncles and that he never mentions. Cassidy never mentions it.
Yeah, it would have been nice to see them pop up on DS9 every now and then.
That would have been. Hey, who knows? Maybe they were sitting in the restaurant and they just never said it.
Benjamin, say it, John.
Benjamin Lafayette Sisko.
I love it. So yeah, we'll be doing chapters 5 and 6 our next go run. And real quick, I wanted to show these because we didn't mention these the last episode, but you should get this book if not only for these awesome illustrations that they have where they kind of went back and recreated some of Sisko's life. There's some really, really cool images.
What was the stuffed alligator's name?
Something Bayou. Mr. Bayou?
Mr. Bayou or something. Yeah. So it's another good part in there where he's talking to him and then realizes it's just kind of self-realization moment that, hey, talking to somebody that just listens all the time may not be helpful. We're gonna have to dig into it. You have to read that part, but that's pretty good.
But I'm getting excited. I'm getting excited about this because there are some characters I can't wait till we get to that we know are going to be in the later, DS9 and later that are should pop up in his early life as we get to the academy and stuff. So
yes,
I'm getting really excited about seeing some of these characters pipe in.
You know what? I didn't think about that. You know what I want to get into? The Curzon thing.
Me too.
I got to. We just keep hearing these stories on the show, and I really would like to get into that.
It's got to be some cool stuff. Dealing with that in here. Yeah.
Gotta be.
All right, guys. As always, you can hit us up at the aforementioned outlets, discussingtrek.com, or if you want these early, you can get them on our Patreon, which is patreon.com/discussingnetwork. You get the episodes early, but they'll be out on YouTube and they'll be in a podcast feed. And again, thank you for joining us. And until next time, John, do we have a sign out for this show?
Oh yeah, we can't do live long and prosper.
No, we can't. Until next time, read well. I don't know.
We need the reading rainbow thing, but Star Trek style.
Yeah, that should be can we call it Trekkie Rainbow? Maybe.
No. And I'm not even going to say anymore. Just no.
All right, guys. We'll see you next time.